So I have to give some backstory before I tell the crux of it. Growing up, I have 3 little brothers. They were a yours, mine, and ours situation. My mom and stepdad got together when I was about 12. He had a son named Dave. I have 1 full-blooded brother named Joel, and then our baby brother, Jonathan. And he's about 11 years younger than me, and I've always, dressed him up in girl clothes when he was a baby and that kind of thing. But me, Dave, and Joel were all stair-step kids. I was 12, Dave was 11, Joel was 10. And we were pretty close growing up. And my stepdad had some issues with his ex-wife. There was always fighting on that side, and I was very privileged in that my parents never fought in front of me. I'm so glad they're divorced. They're not meant for each other. Didn't get along with my stepdad for the longest time because he's polar opposite of my dad, which is probably why my mom is still married to my stepdad and not my dad. But my little brother Dave started to get into some trouble in high school years. He started stealing copper. He got arrested. He tried to cook meth in our living room. It was one thing after another, and one thing that's very important in our family is love and light, and we just love each other through the hard times. And I value that that was instilled in me. I also had a pretty restrictive religious upbringing, and I think that's the case for a lot of us in the South. And so there was a lot of, pray over it, and yada, yada, yada. Well, as we became adults, we kind of drifted further apart. Me and Joel have always remained close, even when we're fighting constantly, but we have the same bloodlines, so that helped us. But Dave kind of went on this downward spiral, and he was close to the baby brother for a while. They talked about science and smoked weed together and all sorts of stuff. And then Dave got engaged to someone, moved away. My stepdad would get a call in the middle of the night sometimes. Dave's in jail again, got to go to court. And his life just kind of went downhill. And one night I was at work it was July 22nd, and June 22nd. I was at work at 13 WMAZ, and I got a call from my baby brother, who I've never heard cry, that Dave was dead. And we kind of knew that it might happen at some point because he had been in and out of rehab, in and out of jail, in and out of this center and that center. But I'd never heard Jonathan cry, and that was really, really terrible. And I screamed and put the phone down, and I left, and I drove to Atlanta immediately. And my stepdad was beside himself. That was his baby boy. And my mom and grandmother were actually in Tennessee. They were on a trip. And my mom called me crying, and then Joel called me crying, and everyone called me crying, and we're all crying, calling each other. And Dave died in a particularly horrific fashion, in that he was walking on the interstate and got hit by a car. And they think he was trying to cross the road to get gas because his car was out of gas. But my family's pretty sure that he killed himself because he had talked a lot about laying down in traffic and just letting himself go away. None of that matters. He was gone, and it was really hard on our family. My mom and my stepdad had separated for 3 years. Oh, that's a whole other story. But they had just gotten back together like 6 months before. And if my mom hadn't been there for my stepdad during that time, and our family wasn't a unit to support each other, it would have fallen apart. So we go up to Atlanta, Douglasville area where I grew up, and my mom and stepdad are dealing with the funeral stuff. My stepdad doesn't deal with his emotions well, while the rest of my family puts it all out there, for better or for worse. And so my stepdad's kind of keeping to himself, and my mom's keeping herself busy, because that's what she does. She'll ask you if you're okay 1,000 times, even when you say yes, please go away. And so me and my brothers decided that we wanted to put together some memory boards. And we've done this at every family funeral we've had, where we just gather all the photos, make it look real nice, and get these poster boards like you would do a project on. And so we're going through family photos, looking for the best one. And of course this is incredibly emotional because there's all those sweet childhood memories before all of us became adults and were hit with the realities of life. And so we're going through these photos, and we find Dave's senior photo from when he graduated high school. And everyone usually gets a senior photo when they graduate. Dave's took a lot of work. It took him 3 extra years to graduate high school. He was really proud of himself that day. He actually had his own tux that he wore to the place. And we found the picture, but it was the proof they give you. So it had the company name over it. And he had graduated high school 7 or 8 years before that. We couldn't find the original. And we really wanted to use that one and have it framed and put up at the funeral. And my mom was like, Rachel, can you Photoshop? I'm like, I don't know how to do that yet. And so one of my brothers had the idea, well, let's put it on Reddit and see if someone will do it. And if you're not familiar with Reddit, it's kind of like a message board type thing. You can post and talk about anything. There's horrific stuff on there, and then there's perfectly fine stuff, and it's just, free-for-all anonymous posting on the internet. And there's a page where people will Photoshop things for you for free, whether they're bored or just want to, out of the kindness of their heart. And so Joel posted this picture of Dave on the internet, and he explained the situation. And he put my Reddit handle and Jonathan's in there just to say, hey, these are my siblings. We're going to check this page. If anyone can Photoshop this, clean up any blemishes, take out the watermark. Here's what happened to my family. It's really important that we have this photo. So we posted it on Reddit. My parents, don't think anything of that. They didn't understand the internet. And what happened over the next couple days is one of the sweetest things I can imagine. And it's the way my family grieves and processes, is through humor. And a couple people actually cleaned up the photo really nicely, so we got what we wanted. But then someone Photoshopped Dave in an astronaut suit on the moon and said, I remember the time Dave went to the moon, it was awesome. And then someone Photoshopped him courtside, front row at the Lakers game. Oh yeah, I sat next to Dave at the Lakers game, it was amazing. And someone Photoshopped him as Walt from Breaking Bad and said something about cooking meth, and they didn't know the background, but it was still funny. Someone Photoshopped him as president and said, vote for Dave 2020. And we got about 20 photos that these strangers on the internet just did. And me and my brothers and my mom are just crying, laughing, looking at these photos. It was the sweetest thing that I could possibly imagine, and it helped us grieve through what was a horrific time for our family. My stepdad didn't want to see the pictures. We told him about it, and he was like, I don't want to see that. And last year, on Dave's birthday, which is June 6th, one of my brothers brought it up, and David said, yeah, I'd like to see them. So we showed them to my stepdad, and he actually emoted a little bit. He cried a little bit, and we shared in that together. And to me, the best definition of love and light is levity, adding some lightness to something so it's not so heavy. And all these strangers on the internet gave us this lightness that was perfect. And that's my story. Aww. That's why I love the internet.